city councils, and guess where they get their most votes from? The black community. They can count on the black community for the votes that they need for the police department, for pay increases and other kinds of things. And so, this is basically a local matter that should be dealt with. The federal government comes into play with the Department of Justice. We have a Civil Rights Division, and they determine whether or not to enter a case based on whether or not they believe the civil rights have been violated. And so they pick and choose. And they don't come in on everyone. And we started in the platform to say they had to come in on every case, but we knew that was unrealistic. But that's something that needs to be paid attention to. I've been thinking about what to do about that. And I think a piece of legislation that would authorize and appropriate a lot more money to say, you go out and hire a lot more lawyers in the Civil Rights Division so you can take on more cases. I think that's very important. The president has been trying to provide leadership in the way that he handles these killings. But he does not have a magic wand. He does not control the votes in Congress, and he does not control the police chiefs or the city councils. And while everybody would like to look at the Congress of the United States, of course, we have introduced, over 60, 70 bills where we're trying to find a way to have reform of the grand jury, where we're trying to create the database that you're working with, and I love the way you're talking about that, and some other kinds of things, but we're picking at the edges, really, for the most part. We don't have the ability to fire a police chief. We don't have the ability to train the police. We have been advocating based on what we think should happen in these communities. And remember some of the things we've talked about. We always talk about police training, and that's very important. But we can't verify very well whether or not the training has changed, whether or not something new is going on. We depend on the police commissions for the most part. And so we still have to be advocates for training, but I think we have to get real creative and think about more specificity in what we're asking for. We fought for those body cameras, and now they tell us they didn't record anything because it fell on the ground. And not only are they falling on the ground, they tell us, oh, but the voice can be heard. Yeah, the voice can be heard with an officer who decides to say something that will protect them later on. Remember what happened? Oh, he has a gun! And so that gets recorded, and that's your defense. In addition to that, now in these cities, you know what they're doing? They are coming up with policies and regulations and laws that whatever is on the camera does not have to be shown to the public. Some ever and some anytime soon. They work it, and some people think that it's worked in a way for the police department and the police to get their act together before anything becomes public. And so, even though we were great advocates for the body cameras, cell telephones are doing a better job than the body cameras are doing. So keep those cell phones out. We talked about training, we talked about the body cameras. We have tried in many communities to get police review boards or commissions. Oh, but do we have resistance to that? We have resistance from the police unions because they do not want citizens involved in anything that has to do with reprimanding them or getting them fired or basically knowing what they're doing. So we have not been able to get citizen police review boards. And we started this years ago, trying to do this. So that has not worked very well. Now, I've been talking with Ben Crump, and I'm thinking about some things. And some of this, has to be negotiated. And that's this. These young men and women are not being killed because they're caught robbing a bank. they're caught committing a murder, they're caught committing some big crime. Most of these killings by police happen at the point that they stop about a broken tail light, a windshield wiper going off. You fail to signal the left-hand turn or the right-hand turn. And so what is this all about? And why do you have to do this? First of all, you don't have to do that. You don't have to stop for those reasons. Now, the other reasons, and I'm going to start with this sentence, and I want you to finish it. Oh, we stopped them because they fit the description. And I'm thinking about, if you're going to use that for an excuse, how are you going to document who alerted you to this person who fit the description? What time did they alert you to this? What time did they alert you to this person that they say you fit the description of? And some other documentation, because we've heard that one for far too long. So, having heard all of this and understanding all of this, and knowing that many of these killings are stopping at the point that, you're stopped about this tail light, etc. What's ensuing? What's happening here when you stop someone for the tail light? And so you stop them, you get out of the car, you go up to the car, and you say, where's your driver's license? Get out of the car. But let me tell you about some other things that are asked, and I'll tell you about some incidents that have been brought to my attention. One young man who was driving a Mercedes was stopped. He's a coach at a high school, and he had a lot of the uniforms in the trunk of the car. So they had him to open the trunk, which they should not have done, but they did. They saw those uniforms. He was a coach, and they asked for identification. And nervous, he gave them identification. And then they asked, have you been drinking? He said, no, I've not been drinking. Do you have a weapon in the car? No, sir, I do not have a weapon in the car. And you don't have a driver's license. This is not a driver's license. And so the young man said, yes, I do have a driver's license, but you asked for identification, and I just gave you some other identification that I had. And, being fearful now to go for, the identification, because a little hostility is developing here. But he did what we teach him to do. Make sure that you say, I am reaching into this pocket for a driver's license. And if you'd like to do it, you may, all of that. And finally they said, where's the bill of sale for this automobile? Where's the bill of sale for this automobile? Because you're driving a Mercedes. Well, these are the kinds of questions that create the confrontation. These are the kinds of questions where you insult and you embarrass and you're looking for something other than that taillight problem. Because it doesn't take all of that to tell you need to get that taillight fixed. As a matter of fact, if they really wanted to help you and to remind you, they could drive up next to you and say, look, don't forget to get that taillight fixed. That taillight is broken now. But they're looking for something else. What is the something else? Something that I can arrest you for. And this kind of confrontation at the point of being stopped has got to stop. And we're going to have to advocate. This is one of the things that we got to urge for our discussion with the police chiefs and the city councils and all. We want to back up on these kind of unnecessary stops. And it's kind of like this. When you're kids, in particular little boys, they throw rocks and they commit a little vandalism and they ring people's doorbells and they do that stuff. Well, somebody calls the police, the white kid gets taken home to their parents, the black kid goes to jail. Yep.